So, welcome to this webinar. Thank you very much for joining me. And to those of you that were here bang on 1 o'clock, much appreciated. I do like punctual attendance. So we're doing this webinar about 2025. Obviously, we're coming to the end of 2024, and we want to start. Well, actually, we at Sourced have already gone through our process of planning and forecasting for 2025. So if you haven't done it already, you need to start thinking about it. And it is both an exciting time and a not very exciting time when it comes to your sort of cycle of activity that you get up to in running a business at the end of the year, because you get to put down your plans for the next year. You get to think about what you're going to achieve. You get to look at, if you do these daily activities, if you commit yourself in a way that you're expecting of yourself, by the end of the year, what will you have achieved? And that's very exciting, isn't it? That's very exciting to see where you could be. But also, there's quite a lot of admin and there's quite a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of sitting down, thinking and writing time that is involved in putting that plan together. Because as everybody knows, you fail to plan, you've planned to fail. Therefore, the more time we can put into this plan, the more what's the word I'm looking for? The more good quality thinking time that you put into this plan, the better. And the better your plan and the more detailed your plan, then the more structured and focused you're going to be throughout the whole of 2025. So this is definitely a time that you need to be, and you might be leaving this till after Christmas, between Christmas and New Year, because that is for me this year, there's going to be very little going on between Christmas and New Year. And so that would be a great time to sit down and commit myself for two or 3 days when I'm not going to be doing much else apart from eating the Christmas turkey. I'm going to commit myself 2 or 3 days to put that plan together in some serious detail so that in 2025, I know exactly what I'm doing, I know how I'm going to do it, and I know what I'm going to achieve by doing what I'm doing. So the first thing that I'd like to ask is a couple of questions. So I've got a poll for you. So if you could please, there we go. If you could please let me know what your answers are to this poll. The question is, what is your starting point? And I've given you 3 options. I've given you the option of I'm at the beginning, I've started and transacted. So what I mean by that is you've started and you've actually done something other than just do training or just go to networking events. You've actually transacted property, and that could be that you've sold something on, or you've taken on a rent to rent, or you've purchased an investment property. Or the third one is I'm established and looking to scale. So if you can tell me where you are in that process, then I'm going to be able to tailor the webinars more specifically to the majority of people that are listening. Okay. All right, then I'm going to end it there. Thanks very much for taking part. So that shows me that the majority of people in the room are right at the beginning. And so it makes sense that this isn't part of your normal routine, right? This isn't part of your normal annual activity, because you're right at the beginning. So you've not done this before for this venture, for property. So what we're going to do is we'll pretend that we're doing this for the first time. So instead of being established, we're going to pretend that we're doing this for the first time. Now, when you're looking at property, it's very, very easy, especially if you're at the beginning, like the majority of you guys, that you don't have an in-depth knowledge of the strategy. So, and there are many strategies, right, in property. There are many, many, many strategies. We run for our franchisees something like 10 separate strategy courses. And that's not all of the strategies. That's just the main strategies that you can then niche down into to sort of discover other joint strategies or other more niche strategies. So there's lack of strategy knowledge that is a problem. There's not having a plan. And if you don't have a plan, what tends to happen to people is they run around like headless chickens, achieving not very much at all. People don't have investment capital, but because they have a lack of strategy knowledge and they have a lack of a plan, they don't know how to deal with that. They don't know what to do with that lack of investment capital, because they might still be thinking that they're going to be able to purchase a flip, but they don't then know how much money they're going to need in order to borrow that from an investor, or how to structure that relationship with the investor, or how to focus on cash flow and where they can get cash flow from before they then start to need big pots of money to purchase property. And that comes down to the lack of financing knowledge or availability as well. So if you don't know how to use finance, then that's a problem, because in property, is property completely unique in that you can leverage yourself so much to purchase something that's purely an investment? I'm not sure, but it's very, very strong in property, obviously being able to borrow money from somebody else for you to buy an investment asset. And if you don't know the difference between the financing options, and you don't know how they can affect you and how you can use them best, it's going to be a problem. And then lack of experience. Lack of experience at putting deals together, at understanding what lenders are looking for, understanding how you're going to schedule the project to go from where it is at the very beginning to where you want it to be at the very end. So what I'm going to teach you today is discovery, and the things that you should be looking at first when you're putting together your plan, especially for the first time. Then we're going to start planning your success, and we're going to look at the ways that we do this with our franchisees. We're going to look at your strategy choices, and I'm going to give you a bit of a hint as to the top strategies to look for in 2025. Now, when I talk about top strategies, it would be really easy for me to make a webinar and say, HMOs are going to be the best strategy in 2025, but that isn't what we're about here, because when you start to look at the strategy, you need to take a lot more into consideration than just the strategy itself. I mean, geographically, HMOs in different parts of the country are going to react completely differently to any legislation that Labour comes out with. But you also need to consider your position and what you're bringing to the table, which we'll get to in just a minute. And then we're going to look at delivering your plan and making sure that you've written a plan that is going to help you actually deliver it, instead of creating the most complicated plan possible that prohibits you from being able to move forward. So this is one of our sourced franchisees. This is Nigel Guppy. He purchased this property. Was a HMO conversion. So he purchased this property for £200,000. He refurbished the property for £220,000, turned it into a HMO, rented it out to the NHS on a long-term lease. And now he doesn't have to do anything to manage that property. Now, it also just so happens that Nigel did that project by borrowing all of that money from Source Capital. The margins were so good in that project that he was able to borrow the full amount to do that. And when I say full amount, what I'm talking about is purchase price and refurbishment cost. Any costs around that, like stamp duty, he wasn't able to purchase because he wasn't able to borrow, because lenders don't lend on stamp duty and other costs like that. This is Jason Kay's Hadley House project, 24-bed HMO converted from a care home into a 24-bed HMO. Valued originally at 450, bought for 350, final valuation once it was all done at 1.2 million, net income approximately £6,000 a month. So in terms of finding cash flow, this was a great project, and it's still going. He still looks after that property, and that is still going. And then you've got new build development. So this is one from one of our franchisees, Mark. And he's funded and developed 4 sites in the last 2.5 years. This one is a development site of 2 properties, around 4, from the top of my head, they're about 500 square meters each. These properties, absolutely colossal properties here in the Northwest. And that's just one of his projects that he's done. Now, my name is Chris Kirkwood. This is me, and I'm here to talk you through this webinar. And why am I the right person to talk to you right now? Well, I'm the managing director of Sourced, and I've helped these franchisees. I've helped set up the system of Sourced to help these franchisees achieve their goals. Now, my background before Sourced was that I've founded and run and grown multiple businesses across different business sectors. I've been involved in property from £55,000 up to £150 million. Out of all those deals that I've been involved in, bearing in mind that we've got 220 franchisees here at Sourced, I've executed every single strategy that there is, or helped people execute every single strategy that there is. And then really my focus right now is on growing Sourced as a business and making that package of goods that we offer to our franchisees the most comprehensive and helpful package that we can possibly put together. So dominating property in 2025. Now, this is where most people start. they have a think about what they want to achieve, that they want to get into property in 2025, and then they think about, right, what strategy am I going to look at? And they'll choose one. And if they're quite savvy, they'll have an understanding that they can't execute every single strategy. For example, doing new build or doing planning gain would be very difficult if it's your first strategy that you're getting into, unless you've got some kind of transferable knowledge or transferable skill set, like you're a site manager, or like you're a QS, or like you're a project manager. So what people tend to do is they look at when they're going to get paid. So for deal sourcing, I could go out today, find a deal, introduce it to an investor, and get paid within the next couple of months. Well, yes, that's what I want. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do deal sourcing. But actually, the consideration for doing deal sourcing needs to be much greater than just when you want to get paid. Because the right strategy for you might be flips and refurbs, or it might be HMO, or it might be title splits, which by their nature are going to take longer for you to get paid. But you have to take into consideration a bunch of questions when you're putting that decision together, not just when you want to get paid, but how much time do you have? What is your property experience? What are your transferable skills? How much money do I have to spend? How much money can you add to the pot to spend? What is your definition of success, and what is your long-term purpose? You need to be considering all of these factors, and you need to think about, the top two are very, very, very important. How much time do you have? Because if you're doing this as a side hustle and you're working full time Monday to Friday, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you're working in your other job, in your main job, and you're needing to call agents and chase things up. And property is hard. That's why more people aren't phenomenally successful at property, because it is hard. Now, when you've considered all of those things, you then need to put that together, and you need to think, well, with that experience and with that time and with that money that I have, what then is the best strategy that I can look at? And once you've really evaluated your own situation, do you then start to look at the strategies? Because what will happen is you'll probably be left with maybe 2 or 3 strategies that actually fit what you can do. Now, one of the reasons that I brought up deal sourcing, and we put deal sourcing at the top, is I see a lot of people who really are drawn to deal sourcing because of the speed of turnaround of being paid. It really can be two months or so till you get paid for the first time, right? So 2 months. Whereas if you buy a property, it's going to take you 6 months just to buy the property, just to go through the conveyancing process. So deal sourcing and having a turnaround time of getting paid as 2 months is very, very appealing in property. But what I tend to see is people who just aren't right for deal sourcing, because deal sourcing is a sales job. And some people just don't have the skill set in order to do sales. They don't have the skill set, they don't have the attention to detail, and they don't have the organization, because you need to be very organized when you're managing sales. And so that's why we look at experience, and that's why you should also look at experience. I'm just going to read a question. Somebody sent me through a question. I'm just going to read it out. Hi, what is your opinion on co-deal sourcing and someone in a shared company, please? So what I mean is, we are in the same company, same compliance, legal, etc. Would you say it's better to have 50-50 shared profits and have one person do one half of the business and the other person, okay, deal sourcing. Shall I answer that question now? All right, I will. I'm not a fan of co-deal sourcing. I think a lot of people get into it too quickly without the right contracts in place. If you're going to co-source with somebody, you should have a contract in place with that person. And very few people that I see that actually do co-sourcing have a contract in place that has been run through a solicitor. And because I've seen the other side of deal sourcing, when you put your trust in somebody to bring a property to you, but then they didn't have full control of that property, or they sell the deal, they get their half of the money, and then they serve notice on the people that they've sold the deal to. It can be a very, very messy situation. So unless you've got all of the right legal checks and compliance in place, I wouldn't do deal sourcing. I would focus on building up my own reputation and my own network within property, and I'd be finding deals for myself. Okay, so strategies. So then you go back to the strategies, and these are the strategies that you choose from based on everything that you have to bring to the table. But bear in mind, and when you know, we're going through this webinar because I'm telling you that you should be doing this, because I absolutely 100% believe that you should be doing this. When you're doing it, you need to be very self-aware. If you're not good at sales, don't rely on yourself to be a salesperson. If you can teach yourself sales, or if you can go on sales courses and you can become a good salesperson, that's a different scenario. But for me, I would never be able to do deal sourcing full time because I just don't have the skill set. I could do it as a part-time thing, and I have done it as a part-time thing in the past. But I am much more into finding systems that can allow me to scale in a way that isn't just dependent on my time. Just going to have a look at another question. So this is a follow-up from the last answer. 100%, we are 100% wanting to work together, be compliant, have the right contracts, legal, be same company. Then we want to go into HMOs, but thank you for your advice. Yeah, no problem. All right. Not a problem. So once you've gone through that sort of self-discovery phase, and once you've gone through the choosing of the right strategy for you, you then need to make sure that you understand that strategy, right? This is just very common sense stuff at the moment, but this is exactly what you should be doing. And I'm happy to talk to you about this because, like I said at the beginning, the majority of you guys are starting from absolute zero on here. So at that point, you then learn. But what you shouldn't do, and this is what a lot of people do, is they see a course that's on about HMOs, and then they go to that free weekend that somebody offers for HMOs. And then when you go on the free weekend course, you then get offered, you know, a huge discount on the next course, which should be 10 grand, but you can get it for 2 grand. You know, everybody knows that that's the process and that's the sales structure of a lot of companies that are in property. It doesn't have to be like that. It can be completely different. So, but again, what people do is they go to the HMO course and then they come away from the HMO course, but they haven't even considered what their skill set is and what they can bring to the table to know that HMOs are what they should be doing. So they're doing it the wrong way around, which ultimately means that they're wasting money, because they might do the HMO course and then discover that they can't do HMOs and then have to go to a different course, which is the strategy that they should be doing, and now they wasted money on that HMO course. So self-discovery first, strategy choice second, learn about that strategy third. When you're learning about the strategy, make sure that they know what they're talking about. So this is a blueprint. A blueprint is a blueprint because it describes how to build a property, how a property should be put together. And the blueprint shows you the structure of that property. This is one of our blueprints for one of our strategies. So I told you that we have roughly 10 courses that we deliver, 10 strategy courses that we deliver to our franchisees. This is one of them. This is deal sourcing. Now, if somebody were to follow this step-by-step process, this walks them all the way through getting set up to selling their first deal and scaling their business. And we put that together to make sure that our franchisees know where they are on their steps at any time. So what we do as well is we deliver that learning over a 4-week period. Now, we could do it over 2 days. We could deliver all of that course over 2 days, but what tends to happen is people's brains explode because it's just too much information. It's just way too much to take in 2 days. And so when they go home, they're still lost as to what direction they should be moving in. With our guys, what we do is we do a 3-hour webinar once a week for 4 weeks. And that covers everything in that course, everything. But what it also does is it allows us to set homework from 1 week to the next. And on every webinar, the first thing that we talk about is who's done their homework and how much have they done and how good is their homework. Because that's the best way you learn. A combination of being told what the right thing to do is and you actually doing it at the same time. So our blueprints that we have made for all of our courses get delivered every other month to make sure that our franchisees have full access to those courses all the way through the year. And we do them live as well to make sure that if anybody's got any questions, just like on here today, if anybody's got any questions, they can get those questions answered straight away, because it's all about progress. Now, if you're looking at, well, I don't know, let's just use HMOs again. If you're looking at HMOs and you see an online course, you need to take those things into consideration. Because if it's just an online course, but it's live, but it's recorded, then you're not going to get the opportunity to ask questions. If it's over a 6-hour period, you know, how frequently can you pause it to sit down, write your notes, and make sure that you're up with exactly where the teacher is describing. So the way that we've done our courses is that they're convenient because people can sit at home, they're frequent, they're comprehensive, and they allow time to put all the information into action. If that suits you, then that's what you should be looking for. If that doesn't suit you and you just want online stuff so you can watch it on the train on your way into work, then that's what you should be looking at. But make sure that you're making the right decision for you and your situation. So looking at cash flow, sorry, not looking at cash flow, looking at the top strategies of 2025, I've broken them down into 3 because we tend to find people with different purpose, with these 3 different purposes when they're in property. And that is to generate cash flow, or to make more regular income, to build their portfolio, or to make bigger pots of income and create a pot of money, which is profit. In 2025, I suggest that the best cash flow strategy is going to be rent-to-rent HMO. The portfolio building strategy, the best strategy, is going to be HMO. Now, HMOs are still, after all of these years of people talking about saturation points, are still a very, very, very in-demand thing. And if you think about the economic situation of the last couple of years, it's no doubt whatsoever, or it's not a surprise in any way, that HMOs are still very, very popular. And in fact, what's happened is student HMOs have hit a saturation point in a lot of towns. I completely agree with that. But different subcategories of HMO are now popping up. And they're keeping the HMO industry going, or the number of HMOs that are being built, they're keeping that going because there are still lots of tenants out there that aren't being serviced. So rent-to-rent HMO, I think, is a very strong cash flow strategy. I used to do this strategy, and I think that marketplace with that as the solution is only stronger than when I did it 15 years ago. Building a HMO portfolio, again, I think is a very strong thing to do. Now, let's consider that economic situation and to why I've made these decisions, specifically around HMO. And this will refer to flips as well, but let's look at HMO specifically. The economic situation has driven up interest rates for mortgages. Investment mortgages and residential buy-to owner-occupier mortgages, they've both gone up. Now, what that means is there are fewer investors that are looking to put money into property, which means that fewer investors are building HMOs. It also means that fewer people can get onto the property ladder because interest rates are higher. Interest rates are higher, and the amount of deposits that people need are bigger. So if that is the case, then fewer HMOs are being built, and fewer people who currently live in HMOs are able to move out of those HMOs and purchase their own property. Now, you also put into that rental prices have increased, which means that fewer people can afford to live in their own rented property. This is all pointing towards HMOs being the solution. And so we've seen, especially in the higher end HMO space, just like the property that I showed you from Hadley House, Jason Kay's property, one of our franchisees at the beginning of the webinar. Properties like that are much more common now than they were 10 years ago. That higher end HMO model is very, very popular because young people who have got decent jobs and previously would have been able to move into a flat or move into their own house now can't. So they're looking for something that's more exclusive than just a bog standard HMO because they've got the disposable income to pay for it. It's just that they can't afford to move out of that HMO at the moment. So that's why we've looked at HMO, rent-to-rent HMOs and normal HMOs as the solution to that problem. And there is still going to be a lot of demand for those two strategies going into 2025. The other thing is, when it comes to the government haven't really identified HMOs as something that they're going to significantly change. So I've just had a question, which is which area should I look to buy a HMO in 2025 to have a good yield? So at that point, I'd point you over to the app, our property investment app. It's the Source Property Investor app. And all of our franchisees have access to that app, and they can put on new properties onto that app every single day to sell on to investors. But if you want to just do your research and you want to check out where people are achieving good yields, then look on there. Look on there because all the metrics are on there. The franchisees have done their due diligence. They've been through the deal calculator, and they've got the metrics on there. So if you're looking for 10%, just go on there and search for 10% yields or 10% return on capital, whichever is your preferred metric, and then you'll be able to see which areas are achieving those numbers. And also, one of the questions that I asked at the very beginning was, what is your definition of success? Now, I can't answer your question at the moment because the question that you asked is, where are you going to achieve high yields? But I don't know what a high yield that is acceptable to you is, because what my definition of a high yield is might be different from your definition of a high yield. And neither of us are right or wrong. You know, your definition of a high yield might be something that's getting 8% because you've got money invested in the stock market, and the stock market traditionally has returned at 7%, and you want to outperform the stock market. So your definition of success might be 8%, but mine might be 15% because I've got other properties in my portfolio that are achieving 13, 14%, and I want to outperform them. So it's a very, all of this, and you know, we're not here to give any kind of investment advice, but it's all very, very subjective. And that's why you need to understand the position that you're starting from and what you think is successful at the very beginning, which is why we ask those questions. So now we've been through a process, right? We've been through a process of self-discovery. We've been through a process where we've then selected a strategy. And then with that strategy, we've gone out there and found courses that can deliver exactly what we're looking for so that we can learn all about that strategy. So now we're in a very strong position to move forward. And now we should be looking at, well, what can I achieve with everything that I'm bringing to the table in that strategy in 2025? So when it comes to goal setting, I think the best way to do goal setting to stop yourself limiting what you can achieve is to define what you want. So define where you want to be at the end of 2025 and then work out how you're going to do it. That's the right way around. Because what will happen is in 2025, if you think, right, at the end of 2025, I want to have 15 HMOs. And bearing in mind everything that you're bringing to the table, I want to have 15 HMOs. And then you think, right, what am I going to have to do to bring on board 15 HMOs? And then you start creating a plan. And you might not know how to do that straight away, but then your brain starts working with you and working creatively to work out solutions to your problem. Whereas if you say, well, I can buy one HMO a month, right? That's not saying I want 15 HMOs. That's saying I want one HMO a month. I think I can buy one in January, one in February, one in March, and I'll just keep on going like that. Well, by being creative and by looking at what you want to achieve at the back end first, you've bought 15. But I guarantee that if you start at the beginning of 2025 and you say that I want one HMO a month, by the end of 2025, you'll have bought 12. You won't have pushed yourself to buy 15. Absolutely guaranteed. So therefore, we start at the back end. We look at the back end, we look at where we want to be, and then we work out a solution for it. And then we go through a SWOT analysis. And this SWOT analysis is of you and your business. So the SWOT analysis sort of compiles your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. and it puts them together so that you have a better understanding as to what you need to plan for, what you need to mitigate against. So you will do a SWOT analysis like this, and I'm going to, I don't think we said this in the original invitation, but I'm actually going to give you a SWOT analysis template, and I'm going to give you a business plan template as follow-ups to this webinar. So you can use this to your advantage. Now, when you've been through your SWOT analysis and you've looked at all of your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, you can then start to plan. And like I said before, the way that we started with that 12-month goal. So let's say that you do want 15 HMOs. So let's start there. I want 15 HMOs at the end of 2025. So in 6 months' time, where do you need to be in order to buy 15 HMOs by the end of 2025? Well, I would say in 6 months' time, you probably need to have bought 5. And then you'll ramp it up in the second half of the year because you'll have found the others. You're just going through conveyancing to buy them. So break it down. So in 6 months' time, I need to have bought 5 HMOs. So now let's break that down into 3 months. In 3 months' time, I need to have bought 1 HMO. And then you need to start breaking it down into a much more granular fashion. So in 1 month, what do you need to have done in order to buy 1 HMO in 3 months? Well, you need to have identified that 1 HMO, and you need to have started conveyancing on that 1 HMO. And if you're going to do that by the end of month 1, what does your weekly activity need to look like? Well, I would suggest that your weekly activity needs to be very focused on finding the right kind of properties, doing some area analysis to find out where you're going to concentrate on, finding the right kind of properties, and then talking to the estate agents to build up your relationship with them so that you can get as many properties on board as you possibly can. And you could start using the estate agents to bring you the right properties instead of you always having to be the person that that is finding the property yourself. You want to encourage as many people as possible to be bringing properties to you. And estate agents are definitely a great place to start. So now you've worked out what your weekly activity is, you need to make a checklist. So how many properties are you going to find every single day? How many estate agents are you going to talk to every single day? How many offers are you going to make by the end of the week? And so on and so forth. And you need to get really very granular. And at this point, when you get beyond 1 month, so 1 month or fewer time, at that point, you need to be all about behavior. It's all about your behavior. So it's not about success at that point. It's about how many estate agents you've talked to, how many offers you've put in. And that's what you need to focus on, because you know that if you do those things, you'll get the properties. But if your goal is, well, I just want 1 property by the end of the month, then you're not breaking it down into a substantial detail to know whether from one day to the next has been successful. And that's what you need to do. So you set those goals in that fashion. And then when you know what you want and what you have to do to achieve it, you then go through your business plan and you write out a business plan as to how you're going to achieve it. And you really put some flesh on those bones of what the goals are. And again, this is the templated business plan that we're going to give to you guys on the follow-up email that's going to come to you in the next 24 hours. So the success stories that we've had from our franchisees, this is Shahid. He does deal sourcing, specifically rent-to-rent deal sourcing. He secured 22 deals he sold 22 deals within 48 hours of putting them onto our property app. He is absolutely phenomenal at finding and selling deals. That is his core. He should not do any other strategy ever again, because that is him to the T, and that's brilliant. And that's how powerful that relationship can be between the right strategy and the right person and the right character. Phil would not be able to do deal sourcing. I'm sure Phil wouldn't mind me saying that. He's much more of a sort of stand back, objective kind of character. And he is absolutely right for doing flips and refurbishments. And he borrowed from Source Capital, made £40,000 in profit by buying a project, doing a very light refurb on it, and then selling it back into the open market. This is Nigel that I talked about earlier. He's got the HMO portfolio. He's got something like £9 million worth of HMOs in his pipeline as well that he wants to purchase. This is Chris, and this is a commercial conversion that he found and converted into 14 flats in Bournemouth in the south. And then this is Jamie, who's built 3 different development sites now, the current one being 22 new build houses. So let me ask you another question, if I can access the poll. But, right, you should see it in just a second. There we go. So what do you think will most hold you back in 2025? And you've got a load of selections there. You've even got some a bit further down. So you can see if you scroll down, then all of the above is one of them. But let me know what you think is going to hold you back through 2025. Interesting. I can see it as you click it. Okay. Interesting. So most of you have said money. But 20% of you actually have said all of the above. That's really interesting. Okay. All right, I'm going to end it there. Thanks very much. Just get rid of that from my screen. So what we do here at Sourced is we put a package of goods together in order to help people start their own property businesses. And, you know, for those of you that have said money, that absolutely can be a problem that stops you starting in property investing. We think, and we've seen from other people, that they've put together something like, when they've, you know, first got into property, they've put together a pot of £50,000 to cover their salary, to cover startup training, to cover some investment capital, and for marketing. And then it doesn't stop there, though, because you need to then invest every single month into training and property leads and investor leads and, you know, your computer systems, and maybe having a mentor to sort of sense check the stuff that you're doing. Funding applications can be fairly pricey. Surveys and searches can be fairly pricey. Ongoing training events, networking, documents, contracts, it can all get quite expensive. £5,000 a month is not an unreasonable amount of money to spend on those things. If you want training, you can go to a trainer to get training, and you can even get some support from a trainer. If you want unlimited support, you're probably going to want a mentor. You can get leads from a lead generation company, but again, you're going to be paying for it. They're going to be about 50 quid each. A mentor is going to be £500 a month. A training course that lasts 12 months is going to be about 25 grand. You could sell your deal through an agent, which is going to cost you 1%, or you could use our property app, which is going to cost you nothing. You can get funding from a lender. You can get an agreement in principle from a lender. You can get joint ventures from a joint venture partner. At Source, we put all of those things together. That's the reason for the package. That's the reason that we're here, is because we know what it takes in order to be successful at property. And we've put exactly that package in place so that people can come in, they can use us when they need us. We stand by their side all the way through their property investment journey, and we support them. And that costs £10,000 for 5 years and £315 plus VAT per month. That's what we charge. Now, that's what we currently charge. And to be honest with you, that is the last time I'm ever going to do a webinar with those prices on, because in 2025, it's going to change. In 2025, our contract will change to be £300 plus VAT per month, or £275 if you're on direct debit, but also an MSF fee. So an MSF fee is a share of the profits. So just like every other franchise operates, McDonald's, I mean, you name them, McDonald's, Costa, anyone, operates the same way. So £300 per month and 10% profit share on trades and a 1% profit share on properties that are purchased. So it's a slightly different contract next year. And to be completely honest, there are going to be benefits to the contract as well, like Escudo and Enterprise, 2 new packages that we're bringing out, 2 new products that we're bringing out that go into those packages. However, this is the last time ever we're going to offer this contract. And anybody that is on this contract when they're with Sourced gets the opportunity to upgrade or to change over to the new contract in 2025. But if you join us in 2025, you won't have a choice. You will be on the new contract, because that is the only contract that we're going to be offering. So if you do want a choice, and we're quite happy with some of our franchisees staying on the old version of the contract, because you know, that's what we've offered, and that's what we have to honor for the term of that contract. So if you're interested in joining us and you like the idea of not having to share any of your profits with us, which I'm sure you would, then it's very much worth your while at getting in touch with us right now and seeing if we can take this further forward. And if you get in touch with us right now as well, I mean, look at the benefit of that. We can help you through this entire planning phase. We can help you do that SWOT analysis. We can help you do that business plan. And we then, when it comes to next year, we're standing by your side, helping you make progress. So thank you very much for your time. If you've got any questions, please ask them now. Please ask them in the Q&A section. But if you want to follow up, then you'll get an email from us tomorrow. But if you want to book in a call, then send an email to sam.clayton@source.co, and Sam will call you back in the next couple of days. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. Otherwise, I will end the webinar. So I'll keep an eye out for the Q&A section. You are welcome. Yeah, have a great Christmas. I forgot to say that. Absolutely. AC, thank you for reminding me. Yeah, have a great Christmas, everybody. If you do need any help with us at all, you've got our email address. Please let us know, sam.clayton@source.co, and we'll be helpful. We'll be very happy to help you out. I'm glad it was very useful. Thank you for the feedback. And look, let me be honest with you, right? I know that yeah, the recording will be sent out tomorrow. I know that planning isn't the most exciting thing. I understand that. You know, I'm not a big fan of it either, but it's so necessary, and it keeps you on track and it keeps you focused, and you will be in a better place at the end of next year if you put the time into planning now. So I encourage you wholeheartedly to do so. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing now. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. And I'll have a great Christmas and a great New Year, and I'll see you in 2025.